Hello, nerds, and welcome. We are crossing the Nerdverse, bringing you yet another episode. My name is Travis. I'm joined, as always, by my fantastic co-hosts, James and Eric. We are without Ryan, as he is suffering from the flu along with the rest of his household, so obviously we're wishing them well as they overcome
Maybe
what
you are.
my family... Well, Bones is wishing ill on everyone, but that's pretty standard for him. So yeah, welcome back to the show. It's good to be back. I'm sorry I missed you last week. I had the flu, so it's going around.
Yeah, it's been wild, like people getting sick and stuff like that.
It'd be like that.
But yeah, so I mean, we got to jump into it. Some big news.
Big news, big news.
Yeah, huge. So tariffs. I know everyone's tired of hearing about them, but it's probably the biggest thing that's especially going to affect the nerdy community.
Pretty much everything. There's not.
It is everything, but like right now, it's going to affect the nerd community a lot more than anywhere else. I think just because they put a hold on the ones with Mexico and Canada. So a lot of your agriculture and things like that isn't going to be as affected right now. But my video games will be.
Yeah, video games,
comic books,
tabletop RPG stuff. I actually think that depending on how this goes, we might see it's going to hurt again. Independent publishers, especially with comic books, like we talked before, they're already kind of in a bad spot. Now it's going to hurt them even more. Same thing with smaller TTRPG publishers, like people doing their own stuff. I think we're going to see a lot of people pushing towards digital content only, rather than
which is
physical books, comics, or otherwise.
I mean, which historically, I was also a way people have gotten around like taxes and stuff like that. When things like taxes have been really heavy on video games or other media and stuff like that, like they've gone to a full digital format or found other ways to get around it. So I'm sure, even with the tariffs in place, plans are already in place on how to best optimize ways to get around it.
Well, yeah, I mean, so there's what I think they're called, like trade-free zones or free trade zones. So it's where a company or a country will import a bunch of stuff, but they don't actually import it. They just keep it there and then immediately export it out, so that they can avoid, like, they go to a country that avoids tariffs. Which, yeah, like we talked before, the show just a minute ago. Basically, Nintendo, that's kind of how their thing works, right? Like a lot of their stuff, the Switch, like for example, Switch 2 coming out, a lot of that's made in China, but they send it to Vietnam first, and then it's sent here from Vietnam. They will be less affected by the tariffs, which I mean, it's good for them, because the Switch 2 coming out, that could be like a major hindrance if they got hit with a bunch of tariffs on that.
So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on for the Nerdverse. It's going to be a wild ride to see what exactly everyone does, whether or not they try to dodge it head on, or you also have like trade agreements between companies that can also get around things like taxes, import fees. You can kind of do what Toyota did and just be like, okay, well, we're going to manufacture all our parts elsewhere and then just put the final product together in the United States, and now we're considered an American company. So even though their headquarters are still technically overseas, they're probably right now the most American made of all vehicles, for a fun fact on everyone, because they do the majority of their assembly here in the United States as opposed to like GM and Ford.
Yeah, the problem though with these tariffs is they're blanket tariffs, so even that, they still are going to have to pay tariffs on shipping all of the stuff. Even though they're assembling it here, like they still pay tariffs on all the stuff that they have to assemble, right?
I was using that more of an example of how they got around the taxes for vehicle import.
But we'll see how things go, how things shake out. Like you said, it's on hold with Canada and Mexico, so we'll just see how things go, I guess.
But on brighter news, Hasbro's making Magic the Gathering into a TV show and movies. So, well, yes, they'll make more money. I am excited to see how they do it, because I can't get into any more reading. I don't have that kind of time or brain power. So it would be nice to see the history and like how the storyline develops. They're starting with a movie, it says. So that should, hopefully they do a good job. I don't think they can really fuck it up.
I venture it's probably all going to be animated.
I think so.
I don't imagine them trying to do a live action Magic the Gathering, because that seems like it would be a really
I didn't even
special effects heavy kind of situation.
I didn't even read that much into it, because I just kind of figured it would be animated.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the first one of the first things coming is like a cartoon or something, anime. On the topic of that too, recently some numbers got leaked for Hasbro in regards to the new D&D book. So one thing they were like super happy, like, oh, it sold way more. The new Player's Handbook sold way more copies than the 2014 Player's Handbook. But the bad news is that out of the people who are making characters for the new edition on D&D Beyond, it's only about 19% of the people who use D&D Beyond. And that's just making characters. That's which is like the lowest entry into messing with new content, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like the lowest
probably
tier.
like, like liberally, we're talking like maybe 5% of people actually playing in the new D&D setting, like with any regularity. So yeah, it doesn't look super great.
Oh man, it's almost like they made a huge misstep when they were gonna try and shut down the org.
Yeah.
Did the gaming community pay attention?
Well, it's probably that, and I would imagine just people don't want to have to buy a whole bunch of new content to
I mean,
start playing a new
to be
fucking
honest,
game.
like gamers have no problem buying new content ever. That's really not a big issue. I think the big issue is how scummy Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast was kind of getting with everything.
I definitely do feel like that's like part of, like, I think it's a combination of the two things. Like, they've gotten kind of scummy, and people are like, I don't want to buy a bunch of new stuff for a company that I don't know what they're going to do in the future, right? Like, I don't like how they've been acting so far. So it's like a little bit of both, I think.
Oh, and one more quick tidbit of news. Did you guys see the Fantastic Four
But
AI generated image that wasn't AI generated?
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw the trailer though.
The guy holding the flag only had like 4 fingers.
I only had 3. Like,
Only
there's
3
all
fingers.
kinds of like hand things in the pictures, but they're like, "This isn't AI generated." I'm like, "It's not. If that's not AI generated, then you need a new artist."
Yeah, your animators are not doing great.
Because there's a lot of things out there for that.
Trailer looked good.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Honestly, the most comic book accurate portrayal of Ben Grimm, I think. That
Other than
animation and costume look pretty spot on.
he doesn't look as big maybe as he does in the comics. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's roughly
but
about
it's
the
like-
same size as the Hulk. Like,
Yeah, like a little
give or
bit smaller,
take.
but still like bigger than most people. And it could just be like the images, the still images that we have, like the way they are set up and stuff. So I don't know. We'll see how it looks. Overall, I still think it's fine. He looks good. The costume looks good. I'm excited about the movie. Galactus, even though you only see like part of him,
The back of his head.
yeah, looks fucking like Galactus, and I'm fucking stoked for that.
Yeah. Instead of like a weird cloud nebula like it was the first time they did Yeah, the first time they portrayed Galactus in the Fantastic Four movie, I was like,
I just want to see Deadpool in every single clip at the end of movies now for the credits. So, like, for whatever reason, I want to see them like travel the multiverse, and like they just end up somewhere fucked with Deadpool.
No, I want them to do instead of Deadpool like in credits. I want them to do like Wade Wilson cameos instead of Stan Lee, right? Because you can't do Stan Lee cameos anymore. So you just have like Wade Wilson, like all cancer fucking fight and shit.
just walking through the background as an extra. Yeah, I would love that. I would love nothing more than to have Deadpool take over, or Wade Wilson take over the cameo spot from Stan Lee.
I think that would be awesome.
I think that would be so dope. I think it would be so dope. My news is all wrestling related. We just got done with Royal Rumble, my absolute favorite event. I like it more than WrestleMania. Jey Uso, the winner of the men's Royal Rumble match, so none of us got that one right. The surprise entrant being IShowSpeed. We both James and Eric got that one right. I hope you guys watched IShowSpeed in it, because Braun Breaker absolutely cut that man in half.
I thought he killed him.
That
I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Dirtiest spear I have ever seen in a Royal Rumble. Oh, Braun Breaker is going to be a star, man. Like, if he's not main event picture in the next 2 years, I'm going to be so surprised. But yeah, poor IShowSpeed just absolutely got lit in half. And then Triple H making fun of him in the post-event press conference was also pretty solid. He was like, I got to give it up to IShowSpeed when I told him to go out there. I don't know if he expected Braun Breaker to break him in half, but he was a good sport about it.
True, he was.
Charlotte Flair was, of course, the winner of the Women's Royal Rumble. I don't think anyone was really shocked about that at all with her coming back. I know a lot of people aren't happy with it. I wasn't. like surprised. I like Charlotte Flair. I guess I'm one of the few people that still really likes her. Definitely a pioneer as far as getting the women's division in pro wrestling taken seriously. So gotta
Stop
give her
giving her the
flowers in
belt,
that ground.
though.
No, she can have as many times as she wants. I want her to beat Ric Flair's record. I want her to have 17 to his 16. I want her and John Cena to be tied.
No.
John Cena's already qualified for the Elimination Chamber. He was number 2 at the Royal Rumble. But Cody Rhodes, of course, defeated Kevin Owens. I don't think anybody expected the title belt to change hands in that regard. That was probably one of the best ladder matches I've ever seen in my entire life. Absolutely devastating. That Alabama Slamma on the gimmick ladder, if you haven't seen it, go watch. Just watching Kevin Owens sell that move was spectacular. And then I think there was one other match.
Tag.
DIY retains against Motor City Machine Guns. I called that the other direction. I thought for sure that Motor City Machine Guns was going to come away with the win, but thanks to some interference from another tag team, we have now set up a DIY versus that tag team moving forward. So that's my little wrestling breakdown.
If it's not the Rockers, I'm not watching it.
The Rock. Good God, you're so old.
Best tag team ever. Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, the Rockers.
Super false, but whatever. Good, but false. So yeah, and with that, tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about the Emperor's Children. Given the fact that old Fulgrim is making his return, I think it's a good time to talk about those guys.
I mean, they're doing a lot with it because they're bringing Fulgrim back. It's kind of cool, like with the codex and the new miniatures and stuff like that. They're doing a lot with them. So I think it's a good time to have a little powwow about them, kind of see what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, with the new model coming, and then the new sculpts for his generals or whatever. The current leader, actually, of the Emperor's Children, because I don't think that he's in canon actually returned yet, has he?
I mean, he's technically never died, but he hasn't really been active.
No, he's been on the. We'll get it, but he's been on the slut planet that Slanesh sent him to. These chaos Kumars.
Yeah.
somebody referred to them as. I was like, that's good.
He's just hanging out at the Slaneshi pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. So Fulgrim, should we just okay? So one thing, I don't think we should be too much into the background, the lore. We can maybe try to speed run it a little bit because it's a lot. But I think one thing that I think is really funny is that Fulgrim and Jagatai Khan were swapped after they were sent to their different places by the Chaos God. Somebody swapped them. So Jagatai Khan was supposed to grow up on the mining world.
Chemos.
Chemos that Fulgrim grew up on. I think that's funny. There's only some hints at who it is. Most people think that it is the meme lord that is the Eldari god Kagarak.
It's the Harlequin's god, right?
Yeah. The jokester god, which I think is pretty amusing. It just makes you wonder how things could have gone for old Fulgrim
if he had been with the white scars.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been a weird fit.
So I mean, we mentioned Fulgrim was raised on Chemos, which was a very utilitarian place, and very simple folk, really. They just worked day and night nonstop. Died when you were 14 of rock lung, if you're lucky.
Yeah, it was all go to work immediately. There was no time for pleasure because everyone was the entire planet was essentially one big mining colony.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And
so there was no time for higher learning, pleasure, anything like that, which also leads into why Fulgrim got so obsessed with his legion having hobbies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his whole thing is his rise to power on Chemos because he was a post-human Primarch. He was a genius, just automatically bound to happen. Also, he was kind of the perfect man, so to speak. Very, very beautiful.
He is the prettiest of the Primarchs.
Yeah,
still is. The new sculpt. Yeah.
So he quickly improved the technology on Chemos and made it so that people could do stuff and have hobbies, and he devoted himself to some of that art as well. The Emperor's Children as a whole also pretty unlucky throughout because they started off with a corrupted gene seed. Most of their numbers had to be like purged. Like over half their numbers were purged.
Jesus.
So they started out with like less. Like when the Emperor comes and gets Fulgrim from Chemos, where he's now become like the forever Emperor of Chemos, but the God Emperor comes and grabs him. And he's like, "Come on, you can lead this little legion I've got for you of like 350 people."
Yeah.
Compared
All
to
of which were exceptional
yeah, they were the Emperor's children.
in comparison.
The Emperor's children are the Emperor's children because they were like the best of the best. Like they, and that's kind of their whole thing. Like throughout all of this story, this whole thread that will follow them is that they always have to be the greatest at what they do. And Fulgrim was no exception.
Yeah, nothing short of perfection is acceptable.
Yeah. So yeah, he came back to the fold. He gets the Emperor's children, but they're too small to act as a normal chapter at this point. So this is where, again, the Emperor made a small mistake, I think, in going like, "Hey, why don't you hang out with old Horace over here?"
Horace Lupercal, my favorite son.
Yeah. So why don't y'all hang out and you can work with him. Your legion can work with the Luna Wolves. And so they did. And
We should also talk about how the Emperor's children got their name.
yeah.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, part of the expeditionary fleet, and this was when Big E was still not the wrestling Big E. That was when the Emperor was still part of the Great Crusade, reconquering the galaxy. Got into a bit of a tiff with a planet that had gone into insurrection. Some rebels staged a very complex and very effective ambush for the Emperor, wounding him. The Emperor's Children Legion, which was just called the Third Legion at the time, fought to the last man. Every single one of them that was assigned to his security detail died. But it bought them enough time for the Emperor to recover from the ambush and get his troops organized. He also gave Fulgrim the honor of conducting the exterminatus for the planet to Fulgrim and his legion. So the smallest legion actually led a planet-wide assault that resulted in the extermination of an entire planet, which was a big deal. But yeah, and so the Emperor acknowledged them as his children, and so that's where you get Emperor's children. He also gave them the right to wear the Palatine Aquila, which is a huge deal in Warhammer, as the only person other than the Emperor's children that are allowed to use it is the Emperor himself. And for those of you that don't know what it is the double eagle standard for the Imperium of Man.
All right. Well, we're back to Fulgrim working with. Okay, yeah. So until they during the Great Crusade, they begin to swell their ranks. So between the time the Fulgrim comes back and into the Great Crusade, he's working with Horus, and they become fast friends, so to speak, as much as a Primarch can be friends. Fulgrim was like one of the least liked of the Primarchs. Go ahead.
We also have to mention the fact that his other person that he was extremely close with was
I was
Ferrus Manus.
I was getting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'll let you take off.
So yeah, like I said, he's one of the least liked of the Primarchs. Really, only being friends with Horus, and then later with Ferrus Manus, and they became known as the Phoenician and the Gorgon.
Phoenix and the Gorgon.
Yep, very and they formed this friendship around their just mastery of war, really, right? So they go on to actually become probably, I would say, closer even than Horus and Fulgrim.
Yeah.
To the extent that
the point where they made their signature weapons for one another.
Each one of them made the other a really awesome weapon. Fulgrim making the hammer and getting the sword of flame from Ferrus.
I want to say it was the sword of light. I want to say it was what it was called.
Yeah, I don't
Ferrus
remember
Manus.
exactly. But yeah, this is their kind of iconic weaponry that each of these guys will use. So everything's going pretty well, all things considered, for Fulgrim finally, until the Emperor's children are sent to I think it's the planet, I think it's called Lair, where they've found some chaos stuff going on, and there's a bunch of snake people, which is like a little bit on the nose because it's Slanesh. It's a cult of Slanesh, and they're snake people. They're like space Nagas.
Ooh.
But the Emperor's children they take some pretty big casualties, but they also completely decimate this place and eliminate everybody. But unfortunately, they also find a temple in there to Slanesh, and they all get fucking cursed. And that's like the marking of their downfall. Fulgrim finds a new sword called the Layer Sword, which again, come on, guys, it's not that hard. Like
Yeah.
the layer, they have the layers. Come on, try a little harder.
But you got to think
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when
the
this
naming
part of the
and
story is.
lore scheme for way back Warhammer.
Yeah,
People were just like, nobody's gonna care about the
yeah,
lore, and then it
that's
just
true.
exploded, and they're like, man, we really should have done better about.
So yeah, go ahead.
With the sword, I was talking about Travis with this in the very beginning. I remember reading in the book that he got it from Horus, because Horus, that's how he turned. Was he got
No, Horus got stabbed by a Chaos Blade, and then they took him to a Chaos cult that
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like
put a
Erebus
bunch of demons in the wound.
stole the sword, started a war.
Erebus stole the knife that stabbed Horus and started a planetary revolt.
Yeah,
The layer sword is something else.
Layer sword is its own thing.
The layer sword is a sword that is possessed by a demon of Slanesh. That Fulgrim was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm gonna keep it.
Yeah, his exact words were, "The sword sings to me," and
Yeah.
that should have been a big clue.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
I
Also,
should put this down.
this is where also they encountered the Song of Slanesh. I believe it was from the temple on Layer. So that's also going to lead into what would become the Noise Marines later on. But yeah, so they all actually become cursed at this point, and they become more and more obsessed with this idea of perfection to the point that now they start like augmenting themselves even more. Like they're already super like bio augmented humans anyway, and they start like doing
Now they're
even
replacing parts
they
adding
start
new
like
ones.
doing lots of crazy modifications to their bodies. And God, what is his name? The apothecary, the chief apothecary.
Oh, not Lucius. Lucius is their like war leader guy.
He starts
He's
cloning
like the
things.
opposite of Belisarius Call. I keep forgetting his name.
Oh man, he starts cloning everything. It's kind of important.
Yeah,
I
I'm
have
looking
no
it up right
clue.
now.
Fabius.
Fabius Bile. Oh man, Fabius Bile is like one of my least favorite
Yeah, well, he's not great.
lore-wise people. He is
I think he's
just
actually
the worst.
Yeah, so I think he is.
Oh, and Ryan's not here. I get to bring up my favorite piece of lore that Ryan loves. Ryan, I hope you're listening. About the Demonculaba.
Oh yeah,
Fabius Bile. Go Google what the Demonculaba is, everyone. Do it. I'll wait.
We can get into that a little bit, but yeah. Fabius, his whole thing is like now he's like using the other emperor's children, other people that they find. Like he's just doing all these experiments,
Random space marines he walks past.
Yeah, like literally anybody he gets his hands on, like to try and perfect his knowledge of apothecary is his excuse. I mean, he's just like a terrible person, but
yeah, to talk about some of the stuff he does, he once led an experiment on a planet, took all of the sentient organic material and turned it into super methamphetamine to give to other legions. Not his legion, not the Emperor's children, but other legions.
Though they are crazy addicted to stims and stuff too.
Well,
now,
yeah, but who's not? I mean, a little bit of meth. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
it's just super meth.
So then, shortly after that, I think is like Horus is like, "Hey, I'm gonna kill the Emperor because he's an asshole," basically. And
Daddy didn't hug him.
Fulgrim's like, "Word, I'm in."
Yeah, he had been lost to chaos for a while, really.
This is like he's been carrying around the sort of layer, so it's like whispering to him and stuff like that, slowly corrupting him. I'm sure it probably took a little bit more convincing from Horus, but like they were also friends already. So it didn't take that much, I'm sure. And Fulgrim then went to Ferris to try and like also convince him
3 times. He tried 3 times to get Ferris to fall.
And Ferris was like, "Nah, dog, I'm not gonna do that."
Their last meeting, which is probably my favorite, which is one of my favorite stories in the books, Fulgrim and Ferris meet alone together on a moon. Because again, Ferris believes he can pull Fulgrim back, and Fulgrim thinks he can pull Ferris. Because at this point, Fulgrim doesn't know he's fallen to the Chaos powers. He's just part of a a rebellion in his mind anyway. But they get to speaking, and the tipping point was when Ferrus Manus realized that it was the sword that was speaking to Fulgrim. Almost has Fulgrim convinced to come back, and he was like, cast the sword aside, and Fulgrim was like, no, I really like this sword. Has a mental break and then decapitates him.
Well, he doesn't actually. Fulgrim doesn't want to decapitate him, but
No,
the sword takes over. The demon from the sword actually possesses Fulgrim, and he decapitates Ferrus. But
which
interesting
finishes
thing,
the mental break for
yeah,
Fulgrim there.
Well, Fulgrim just lets himself be possessed for a good while after that, because later on he just exorcises the demon from himself, which a lot of Space Marines can do. Like, that's not unheard of, and he could have done it a lot earlier, like, obviously. But he was like, nah, I'll just be possessed. That's fine.
It's easier to blame it on that, all the stuff he did. That's what it is.
Again, the lore was just this really loose, like, blatant thing way back, and then people have just slowly started filling stuff in, which is why it gets really wild.
I think that was so that was actually that they had a fight because they broke each other's weapons, which was like the symbology there, right? Like, because he used the fire blade, Ferrus used the hammer, and it's fire blade. I looked it up. It's fire blade is what it's called. And they fought, and they broke. The weapons were broken in their combat, which, like, symbolism.
Their bond is broken.
Yeah, but then Fulgrim was like, I got another sword.
Yeah. And then he was just like, boop, and then Ferrus Manus' head fell off. So Ferrus Manus very dead, by the way. A lot of people get to come back numerous times in Warhammer lore. Ferrus ain't coming back. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't too much longer after that. And actually, I think Fulgrim was like the first to give himself completely to chaos and like take on the full demon form, which was the sculpt that we have, the new one, which is like super cool, 4-armed snake guy with demon wings.
And everyone that follows us on social media, which I know is just thousands of you, I used the picture, like, I think all week to, like, post things about this episode. So that particular picture is what the sculpt is going to look like. So that way people have an idea of what Bones is talking about.
And yeah, I mean, and at this point, the Emperor's children are all not in a great spot. You know, they've taken this obsession with being perfect to the most extreme level, as one who worships Slanesh does with everything. So yeah, that's one thing I think that a lot of people just like associate like Slanesh with like a sex cult kind of thing. But for the Emperor's children, like, that's not really their thing. I'm sure probably there are some outliers, but they're not.
They're narcissists.
They're not going out and having orgies, right? Like, they are.
Yeah,
perfecting.
That was the Eldar.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we have Slanesh. Yeah. We'll get into that later too. Not this episode, but another episode. Touch on that. But yeah, so this is like they are just trying to make new stims, new drugs to use. They are torturing people. They've just gone completely off the rails.
Yeah, it's the pursuit of perfection
to the exclusion of their own things. Of their own brotherhood. Even like they are divided in their pursuit of perfection. Like, they don't even like each other.
And
yeah, they also had another big fall off. I've got to get into this before we go too far. Their post fall to chaos at the end of the heresy had a lot of attrition for the Emperor's children because they were just free to pursue whatever their passion was. Now, so of course some of them stayed and, you know, fought. Some still ally with like the Black Legion and Abaddon and stuff like that. You know, we have a bunch that still follow Fulgrim. A lot of them literally started building sculptures until they starved to death, to the exclusion of all things. So they had, again, another huge dip in numbers, already being an extremely small legion, which is why Fabius Bile gets into things like the Damonculaba to create new Chaos Space Marines. He gets into cloning. He gets into a whole myriad of things. He also steals gene seed from other
While we're talking about that,
chapters.
So when Fulgrim gives up his soul to Slanesh, some of his soul is just cast into the void, and then Fabius makes a clone of Fulgrim that is like a clone, like perfect clone of him, to the extent that it actually has some of Fulgrim's soul that was floating around in the void in it. So this clone is like pre-fall Fulgrim. He's very loyalist, and then Fabius gives him to the Necron collector. I just call it the collector. I can't remember.
Trazen the Infinite.
Trazen, yeah. He's the collector, but he's a
He is the
Necron. He has a museum of rare things, and so he gives.
I still think he's holding on to Lehman Russ somewhere in that collection.
So what this is my theory now too. We get Slaanesh, which is like the final of the 4 like demon, like actual chaos legions, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if we get clone Fulgrim back into continuity as a loyalist branch?
Primarch?
Yeah.
I'd be down. I'd be down for that. If
Would
I'm
that
being
be
honest.
cool if you get like next, like, I don't know, 2 years from now they release another, like, new Primarch, and it's fucking loyalist Fulgrim, and we get like a battle box of the Emperor's children versus the Emperor's children, and it's like Primarchs versus Primaris versus Chaos Marines.
Pinks versus pastels, baby.
Yeah. I think that would be and the Emperor's children, like the original color scheme, is more purple, right? Like because that's
purple
royalty. So I don't know. I think that would be freaking awesome, but that's just me.
Pre-fall Fulgrim probably has some of my favorite like lore and stories around him.
Yeah.
Just because he's very relatable. Like he really is. A lot of the other Primarchs hate him because of that pursuit of perfection, because he points out their flaws to them and he's like, you should work on that.
Well, and he's also like, he's put into a position where, like I said, his legion doesn't really exist, and he has to watch as these other Primarchs are like being praised and doing well. Well, he's like, I have to do the same. I have to be just as good, but with way fewer resources. And to the extent that he actually takes over a whole planet with just him and like 7 other Space Marines. They take over a whole planet, which is like an impressive feat even for a Primarch.
Yeah, which to me also leads into the great person he had the greatest tension with out of all the other Primarchs, and that's Rabute Gilliman.
Mm-hmm. Which, Fulgrim
Reboot's superpower is that he's competent in all things. He's not exceptional in the way that some of the other Primarchs are in certain things, but he's competent at everything. It's infuriating. I want to find things to nitpick about Gilliman, but he's just good.
He's good enough.
Everything. Yeah. At whatever he does, he's good enough. Administration, warfare, leading, motivational speeches, writing poetry, whatever. Like, he does all of it well.
So he's like Tom Brady of the Primarchs.
No, Tom Brady was really good at football and then was bad at marriages. That's why he's had like 4.
And 2.
I would still, though, it's 2 failed marriages. Those are still failures, man. I wonder if any of them got the Super Bowl rings in divorces. Anyway, that'd be wild. But yeah, yes. So the reason they butted heads is because Gilliman was good and proficient at all things, but Fulgrim was perfect at the things that he chose to do. And so they butted heads because Fulgrim was always looking at Gilliman and going like, why don't you just focus on something and get good?
Get good, dude.
Gilliman was always looking at him. He's like, if you applied this same effort you do in all of these other things to like administration and all this other stuff, you'd be even better. And Gilliman was like, Fulgrim's like, I don't have time because I have to be perfect at these things. Like, I have to be perfect. And so that was one of their big things, like their sibling rivalry boiled down to both of them saying the other could do better.
And in the end, Fulgrim is actually responsible for Rabute Gilliman's long nap.
Yeah, and stasis.
His long night.
Yeah. And I think I'm so excited to see how that affects the Indominus Crusade, because out of all the other Primarchs, Fulgrim is the one that can just get to Gilliman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mortarion tried to destroy Macragge with disease, and it didn't phase Gilliman. Gilliman was like, okay, I have to go. We got to purge the disease. You got to force Mortarion out. It was still just part of a standard campaign. As soon as he finds out Fulgrim's back, I swear he's going to lose his temper. And Fulgrim is the only person that makes Gilliman lose his temper.
Which, I mean, that pretty much like is the gist of the Emperor's Children, their lore or history up until, the 30th millennium. Other than to say that I believe doesn't Fabius lead the Emperor's Children currently?
I think Lucius the Scarred.
No, I think he's off doing other shit with like another smaller faction, but I think I could be wrong. But
I know he's the chief apothecary. Let me look and see where he's doing now.
And Slanesh was like, "Hey, Fulgrim, you could come chill on this planet of debauchery," and he's like, "Cool, I will." Which is weird. It's a weird
everybody
choice for
needs a
Fulgrim.
vacation.
It's a weird choice for Fulgrim, who's so obsessive over things. But whatever. I guess he was tired of it. Finally snapped. Was like, "I'm just gonna go do drugs."
I mean,
He
everybody
also,
needs a break.
speaking of Fabius Bile, he also was the one that made the clone of Horus on behalf of other members of the Black Legion that Abaddon was very, very upset about.
Shocker, Abaddon upset.
Yeah, Abaddon instantly destroyed the clone. He was just like, how dare you try and recreate that failure, because Abaddon hates Horus for failing. Like, Abaddon lost all faith in Horus. Which,
The Margaritaville. I'm just kidding. It's Mara Viglia. That's the
might as well be.
song that Lucius is exposed to that goes on to create the Space Marines, or the Noise Marines, who are a unique unit to the Emperor's Children.
Yeah. They're the only Chaos cultists that have that. The Song of Slanesh and their crazy sonic weapons that liquefy your insides. Look at it.
They also... So, at some point, we'll got to get into, like, the actual miniatures here.
Yeah.
Because I do want to talk a little bit about them to go along with all this lore of...
Oh, here's the fun fact.
Awesomeness.
Fabius Bile is on the run from the Death Guard. He stole a relic of... Naughty boy.
That checks out. Yeah, so
that does track for Fabius Bile.
Yeah. He went behind the back of Fabius and formed like the Brotherhood of the Phoenix, which is like a warrior lodge in the Third Legion.
Oh, fun. And then in Barristan Prime, Bile stole numbers of the Adeptus Custode and Sisters of Silence. I'm sure whatever he's doing with them is going to be pleasant.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much shit that happens. Fulgrim's story. Fulgrim's like one of the more like well fleshed out like lore. There's not like a lot of like, oh, what happened to him during this random period of time that we don't know yet.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of gaps in his history.
I'll be curious to see how they bring him back in the actual like lore, like the canon story. Like, how are they going to do it? If I was to write him back, I would definitely have it where Gilliman sees him somewhere, and that's how he comes back. That's definitely...
Like I said, all we know is that he's just chilling on this, like, whatever pleasure planet, using that term very lightly. And I'm actually curious to see how they will bring him back in the lore too. But I'm actually kind of excited for it too. Like I said, I also still hope that we get like a loyalist version coming back too. Like, that would be awesome.
It'd be super dope.
But yeah, I guess you are correct. That's pretty much the story of the Emperor's Children, like in a nutshell. There's a lot more details that you could find. Like I said, they have Fulgrim has one of the more extensively written about backgrounds.
Doesn't he have like a whole book, like just Fulgrim in the Horus Heresy?
Yeah.
He's got several books.
Books. Yeah.
But I mean, like, he has like just there's one that's like literally his name.
Yeah.
That's how like kind of popular. I don't know if it was popular or just why he got picked. I'd always be curious to find that out.
I think it's because his origin is so wildly like relatable. Like, it's really easy to understand Fulgrim, given his upbringing on Chemos. Like, you get why he does the things he does, and then you see him take over the smallest legion and have them do the same things that these full legions are doing with like an eighth of the number. It makes him a really relatable guy, because he's always been punching up, compared to these other legions that have entire fleets, and his fits on a single battle barge. I say as if battle barges are small. Like floating planets. So yeah, I think that's why Fulgrim gets a lot of love, and his new sculpt is just so nice looking. It's such a tasty.
So yeah, when we get to talking about the sculpts and the new models, I was watching actually before we started recording here. I was watching a video of a guy kind of breaking down price per points, and we don't necessarily know, I don't think yet, what the full point lists are going to be for all the models coming in the Battle of Slanesh pack. But he was talking about what this guy who is very much into the numbers of Warhammer, kind of giving a range of what the amount of points you're getting essentially going to be for the price, and it's probably about like a good like 40% discount buying the battle, like the box, over trying to buy the individual like packs for when they start releasing.
Individual units,
Yeah,
as opposed to the battle box. Yeah.
yep.
The
So
box is called the Champions of Slaanesh.
yeah, Champions of Slaanesh.
And it looks fucking sweet.
It should be
Snooty booties.
pretty good bang for your buck if you want to go that route. If you're looking at getting into some Space Marine stuff or some Chaos Marine stuff in this case.
All right, so what you get in the box: 12 Noise Marines, so that's 2 squads. 20 Infractor/Tormentors, versatile kits that can be built to your preferred playstyle. You get Lord Exultant, a charismatic commander. You get the Codex and data cards and transfers. So
for those of you that don't know, transfers are the little like wash-on stickers that have like your heraldry in there. I have so much trouble getting those stupid things to transfer.
Same.
I haven't tried yet.
So it takes a touch. Like there's some people that just make it look super easy, and then there's people like me and Ryan and James, and we just struggle bus it and then hope for the best.
Yeah, I think I don't know, man. It's just like, I feel like they just like get a bunch of pauldrons someday, and they're just like, all right, I'll just do 100 of these until I figure out the right method.
Just gonna buy a bit box off somebody that's got pauldrons until we figure it out.
That's a pretty nice box set. There's no price yet out that I've seen for it.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I was to say it hasn't released, and like I said, this guy that was talking about it. He was
get closer to release date.
It was like March or something like that. They probably late April, early March. They'll probably have the price, I think. But yeah, he was just talking kind of based on what has already been released and stuff like that. So.
Right.
Also, his non-demon Primarch armor is super dope. If you feel like getting the Forge World and doing the Horus Heresy sculpts, his armor's legit. It's so good. I think the only one I think that's way better than it is Sanguinius's armor, but Sanguinius's armor, of course, the resplendent gold with angel wings. Like, how do you beat that?
Vulcan. But yeah, we should definitely.
Yeah,
pale skinned green guy.
It's not pale skin.
I like Ninja Turtles.
He's dark skinned. He's dark skinned.
Yeah, it's like obsidian color.
Yeah,
it's because I like Ninja Turtles.
So Lone Vetter says, all right, you guys have sold me. Where does a noob begin the journey of all this? The first thing you're going to want to do is take out a second mortgage on your home because this stuff ain't cheap.
Yeah, and by saying bang for your buck, you're probably talking like for this box, like $250 easy.
Yeah, and that's not including any of the paints.
That's the low end. That's assuming like a low end.
And that's not going to include any of your paints and things like that. Because you're going to have to paint these on your own, which is where I am at the hobby. I don't play, I paint. So like, I forgot I don't have a movable camera anymore to show you my stacks of models. I believe Bones has one on display that I painted. So there's Corvus Corax. And that comes in just plain gray when you buy it. And you have to do like the washing and the cleaning. You have to get all the mold lines off of it. You base it and then you start painting. That guy took me, what was I working on that, Bones? About a month and a half.
Yeah, probably about.
And that was just solid painting, like a month and a half of me just sitting down for a couple of hours every day and painting little bits on that guy.
The painting's a lot of fun, especially figuring out how you want to do it and things like that. There's so much to this hobby, like not just playing or anything like that. Like I enjoy painting. I haven't gotten to play yet. I got to drag myself somewhere to play, but like just the painting itself is fun to do.
Yeah, it's very cathartic, I think, like just getting lost in painting it.
The best way to see what you want to do, though, is you can get the starter kit with like 1 Space Marine and like 1 fucking alien, I think. I think that's the cheapest kit you can get. And that'll kind of give you an idea of what you like to do. Because if you paint that and you enjoy painting, then you can buy the army and the paints and do it yourself. But if you realize, well, that shit ain't for you, a lot of people do what Travis does in the sense of painting armies, putting them together, and then selling them. So that's
I don't
something
sell them.
you
though. I got
look.
such a weird collector.
Well, that's
bug
why
on
I said
I just put
similar
mine in a
to
case.
you. But like there are a lot of people, usually even local to yourself, that probably are doing it right now that you don't know about.
And
Yeah,
if you're looking for a good way to just get into the hobby without buying new, eBay is a fantastic
I was
resource
gonna
in that
say,
regard, because you can pick up an army. You may have to strip some paint off and repaint them if you want to change like decorations or chapter heraldry or whatever, but eBay is a fantastic resource to pick them up for much cheaper than you would buying them new. So definitely keep a look out there. If you're wanting to start on lore, um, you're going to have to go from 2 points. You're going to have to start heresy side and then post heresy side. First book I recommend in the heresy is still False Gods, I think is what it's called. No, Horus Rising.
Horse Rising is the
Horus
first one,
Rising
yeah.
is the first book you want to start on, and it gives you a good foundation of where the Horus heresy really starts.
I mean, there's like literally hundreds of books, so you know.
But again, Horus Rising is always the one I recommend to people to start with. Probably because it was written by one of the better authors for the Black Library as far as their whole fleet of authors goes. That guy's probably the best. Like, just hands down. Not saying the other authors aren't good, because they are in fact publishing books, which makes them a good author. He really did. I think his name's Dan Abnett is the guy that wrote that one.
Really, that's correct. That sounds right. I don't know, Eric. You read it most recently.
Oh, I have no clue, dude. I don't remember authors. There's only 2 authors I always remember, and it's Margaret Weis and Tracy
Dan
Hickman.
Abnett.
Oh, yeah,
Abnett
Dragonlance
is the guy that wrote it.
I love me some
Dragonlance
Dragonlance.
is the best.
Yeah.
There's no better characters. But I do want to talk just for a minute about some of these miniatures now. We kind of gave the lone veteran an idea. If you got more questions, definitely hit us up. Facebook, fucking Instagram, anything like that. And I do all the social media, but I definitely share with these guys if anything needs to be posted and stuff like that. So that way we can always answer questions, especially to get people into new parts of the hobby. It's kind of what we hope happens with our channel, is just people go from like one hobby to another and kind of jump around. So it's nice to see someone checking out 40K. But
it's such a fun dive, especially the lore. Like, I'll catch myself sometimes at night just scrolling through lore pages, looking at all the wild stuff. Which, again, shout out to Ryan and the Demonculaba. Don't look that up on a work computer, by the way. Anyone, don't ever look that up on a work computer. Save you from getting fired. Let's see, Armies of Chaos. Let's look and see what we got going on here.
So, I've got it pulled up right now, and the biggest one that people seem to like from the Emperor's Children is the noise.
They're such dope sculpts. Like, if I'm being honest, they're just really neat.
I like the guns, just look cool.
They all have cool mohawks. You can paint them any color you want, is one of my favorite things about the Emperor's Children. There's really no color scheme. Just pick some pastels you like and go to town, man.
Now, there was something new with the noise guy. The Noise Marines. So they have additional weapons beyond their originals. They now also have Screamer pistols and Blastmaster cannons. So that's going to be some new stuff that's coming out with this box set.
And some sweet guitars.
That'll make it interesting. Yeah, I was going to say, I saw a picture of one with a guitar. I don't know as to how that works out, but that'll be pretty cool.
I saw one somewhere where somebody had kit bashed some dwarven instruments onto one, and so there was a Noise Marine with a tuba.
I mean, you know, whatever works.
I thought it was like, that's so good. Like,
yeah, no, definitely.
I mean, because if there's anything that's really going to give you sonic damage, I feel like being in band in high school, I feel like a tuba is pretty close if you're standing right next to it to sonic damage.
And then we get a new unit now too with this, so it's going to be the Flawless Blades.
Yep. I'm wanting a new Fabius Bile sculpt to come out with this in this run too, because he's wildly outdated.
I feel like the Flawless Blades is in part thanks to Lucius the Eternal. He was huge, especially in Horus Heresy, with like sword fighting and just being the ultimate like sword fighter.
Duelist.
He probably couldn't take a Jedi, but he'd give it a go.
He couldn't even take Sigismund.
I mean, that's not like a lot of people couldn't take Sigismund.
Yeah,
so
Abaddon couldn't take Sigismund. I think I shared a meme with, I think it was Bones, where it was like chaos-fueled Abaddon surrounded by his allies, and it's like the guy sitting on the ground crying, going, "I almost died." And it was a fight with Sigismund when he was just old as shit.
Which, like, the Lucius sculpt, I think, looks really cool, even though I don't care. I don't care for Fabius or Lucius. I don't fucking like either one of the characters that much.
They're just awful. Like,
but
they're just
the sculpts look cool.
Bad people.
I liked Lucius in the book in the beginning. I
At
don't
the
know.
beginning, yeah, sure.
You should like him now. He's got a bunch of. I mean, I'm surprised Ryan hasn't picked up Emperor's Children, given the amount of tentacles I'm seeing here.
I do think his whip's rather cool. I'll post some pictures for people, so you can kind of
It's
see
not
what
a
we're
whip
talking.
anymore. It's his arm.
Oh, is it? Because it says here's something about it being a whip. Well, that makes sense if it's his arm. I mean, that's where I got the picture from. The codex picture on this page has a
Chaos
Emperor's
mutation. It's part of
child
him
playing
now.
guitar.
Yeah, so they like grow their armor and stuff grows into what they wield, like the noise marines. They grow their weapons from their armor.
Or from people
Yeah,
they kidnap.
He can't be killed, Lucius.
Technically, a lot of the Chaos ones,
Yeah.
if they've reached the state of like demonhood, can't be killed. They just go back to the warp and then manifest a body later. Which is why Angron comes back every 6 days, or every, was it like 6 months,
Jesus.
Yeah.
6 months, 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 hours.
Yeah, as part of the reason that Fulgrim actually went over to fucking the full demon thing too is to become immortal.
And for those of you wondering where the Noise Marines got their inspiration, it was the UK punk scene was a direct influence on the.
Yeah, I mean that time frame was like very Wild West for for Games Workshop, and they were like, whatever's popular, we're gonna work it into our game, and so yeah, like punk and glam metal.
Yep, both very big at the time, which is big hair. I called it big hair rock, and you can kit bash so well with Noise Marines because you can just add pretty much whatever you want on there. There's really not going to be. There's no wrong answers with Emperor's Children in general, really.
But yeah, so that's just some of the characters to like kind of take a look at. Like Ryan or like Travis said, there's a lot of different things you can do in regards to color. It's not like when you start looking at other Space Marines, it's a lot different.
They have very strict like chapter heraldry. I play pretty loose with chapter compliance as far as this paint scheme goes on my Space Wolves, and a lot of people do because you want it to be your own. At the end of the day, you want something that you enjoy.
And most ultimately, like even if you're going to go like play, if you're taking your army out to go play with somebody, most people aren't going to care if it's not like exactly like it's supposed to be, like unless they're, and if they are somebody that cares, don't play with them.
Yeah, because they're not going to be fun anyway.
Yeah.
And now, if you're wanting to get into like White Dwarf or do like armies on parade and stuff like that, you're going to have to follow like the chapter heraldry really tightly. But again, that's submitting stuff directly to GW. They're going to put it in their magazines. If you're lucky, your model's going to end up in a codex.
Yeah, if
I
you're lucky.
aspire to one day be good enough to where I could feel confident submitting something, not even be chosen, but just feel confident enough in what I painted to submit it.
I'd submit some. They might give it to me just because I'm special.
You're rattle canned.
Hey, a lot of love is put into these. Yeah, and also another thing to look at that I didn't think about before I started painting, I wish I would have, is a lot of the chapters have like, what do you call them, like sub chapters or something like that?
Successor chapters and stuff.
Yeah. So you can look at stuff like that. A lot of them, like there's a salamander one I really wish I would have went with. They're more of a red color and stuff like that.
Is it the Void Dragons?
No, it's another one. But it's, so look at that too. So if you're looking to do certain colors, they
Not
might
a lot
have
of successor chapters on the Chaos side.
No, not for Emperor's Children. You're probably
Yeah.
Or any of the Chaos Legions. They're all still pretty much.
I mean, Black Legion's kind of a successor chapter.
It's just an amalgamation of all the other Chaos Legions that didn't really want to go back with their own chapter. Or Abaddon has just forced them into submission. We're going to have to do a whole episode on Abaddon and his top knot.
Yeah.
He's got the best hair in 40k, dog.
We got to wait to do that until I actually finish painting mine.
Yeah, so that way you can put him up on the screen. He's just black, dude. Just rattle can it.
Yeah.
Just rattle can it black, and it's good to go. Paint some eyebrows on him, and let's move on. That way you know where his head's at.
But yeah, so it's a great hobby. It's interesting.
It is super fun, like I said. If you're wanting to start in the lore, I recommend anything that's written by Dan Abnett in the Black Library, which is what they call the lore books for 40k.
That's going to be a there's win. No joy at all in the whole series. No joy.
It's actually the calling it the Black Library is also a reference to the lore, which is the hidden books that the ecclesiarchy is keeping from the people.
Yeah, keep noted while you're reading these books too that they will contradict themselves constantly, and that is because there is no canon and everything is canon both at the same time.
Yeah, it both is and is not canon.
Yeah. So it's a good time.
I would also like to bring this up live on this episode that thanks to Gilliman waking up from his sleep after fighting Fulgrim, that gives the lead back to my Primarch, baby. Lehman Russ still got the lead on both Primarch on Primarch kills. He was tied.
Touche. I mean,
So yeah, my boy's got 2 in his belt.
I don't think there's much else to like really mention. Like we want to do more on Fulgrim himself.
Don't Google
At some
Slanesh on your
point.
work computer too. Don't.
Yeah, just don't
A lot
do
of
it. You're gonna get some
Warhammer
weird
stuff I would
images.
just avoid
on your work
on any
computer.
sort of work
yeah.
computer.
Yes, yeah. Slanesh is not the way to go.
But yeah, so we kind of talked about a little bit about the lore, and then we've also gone over some of the newer miniatures and stuff like that. Like there isn't anything I'd like to say more, but I don't know anything that's like confirmed, like codex wise.
And I will say, for those of you listening that want to get into the hobby, Emperor's Children's probably one of the better to practice on as far as painting goes, because the sky, like I said, the sky really is the limit. You can start off with their contrast, which is the Emperor's Children Army contrast paint, is a good way to just get started. I was against contrast paints when they first came out for a dumb reason, and then as time has gone on, I'm like, these are so handy. Like, this makes everything so much easier for me. Also, any Games Workshop store that you are near, if it is an official GW store, will have painting classes for you to go to. And they'll teach you all kinds of tips, tricks, show you about like how you modeled stuff together. You'll fall into 2 camps, which is the camp that I belong in, which is paint and then assemble. And then you'll fall into other camps, which is assemble and then paint.
That's
which
me.
is the camp that James is in. He and I butt heads on the modeling stuff, and he was just like, "Oh, you just blackwash underneath it, and it looks like shadow." And I'm like, "But that's not painted." And he's like,
I definitely personally, from doing it now with this army, any figures I buy going forward, I will be painting and then assembling. I might
man, I'm gonna have to
assemble
switch over to assemble and paint. Be damned if I'm gonna be on the same side as Eric."
just because I have to agree with you, Travis. Like once you've got these fucking things together,
It's so
making
hard to
sure
paint
that you
underneath
fucking
them.
get every part is
I just-
probably the most
rattle can it.
time-consuming thing.
Just
Like-
rattle can it. That's always the answer. Is just rattle can it,
Like-
baby.
Trying to make sure I've got every part of this fucking thing is so annoying.
My a friend of mine, I'll give him a shout out, see if he's listening. But old Ben Mitchum from the army had Nurgle, like he is a chaos army of Nurgle, and his solution to get his stuff looking bulbous and infected was to just base them in gray or black, and then he would dunk them into green house paint, hang them upside down from a rack until they were semi-dried, and then flip them over. And it gave them these like snot-looking boogery streaks all over them, and then he would just highlight around it, and then he was like, "Look, I made a nerdling." And I'm like, "Why does that look perfect, you fucking barbarian?"
You know, I was
He
thinking.
would literally just hold him by the base and dunk it into the thing of paint.
I was thinking. I think that I can do assemble and paint because I do Raven Guard and Black Legion,
Yeah, it's black
which
underneath
is like
anyways.
mostly it's just black, like it's black and white or black and gold. Like that's basically it.
Yeah. My army again is like a light blue. So when you don't paint on the underside of something, it gets super noticeable. It's like, why is there this big black spot like right here? I'm like, because he stands at the back of the unit. Like, stop asking questions. Don't look in my display case.
This isn't dress right dress. Like,
Yeah.
We're not at that point.
Do we have a question of the week this time?
So I just have a generic, like a basic one this week, because I'd be kind of curious. Do you gentlemen think a Primarch can be made into like a dreadnought? I have to give a shout out this one, the Imperium of Man Facebook group. Ia Montari, I stole your question off of there. I'll probably write something to you so you know we did it. But do you think a Primarch could be made into a dreadnought, or is it just pointless?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to lose a lot of what makes a Primarch by switching them into a Dreadnought. But yeah, I mean, it's as far as the physicality goes, I see no reason why you couldn't just slap a Primarch into a Dreadnought casket.
I
Because,
mean,
I
if
mean,
they're
there's hardly anything inside the Dreadnought casket anyway, as
Yeah,
far as
I just wonder because
material.
like Primarchs don't really die like that, you know. So it's like they're either really dead or they're not gonna be dead.
Yeah, they're either really dead or not very dead.
Yeah,
because
Because,
they
like,
heal.
yeah.
oh, they heal at phenomenal rates. I mean, you got to think, even the ones that lose limbs still heal phenomenally fast.
So I don't think that you like. I think that it could be done, but I don't think that it like it'd be a very rare kind of situation because, like I said, they're either completely dead or they're probably going to recover.
As far as anything in the lore saying they couldn't be put into a Dreadnought, I
don't
haven't
think-
come anything
I
across
don't
it.
think
But
there's
again, it's
anything.
kind of like, why would you put them in a Dreadnought? Because you're losing everything that makes him a Primarch. It'd be like having him pilot an Imperial Knight. Like, yeah, he would probably be a really great pilot, but fucking why?
I would like to see the two Primarchs that we don't know come back in Dreadnoughts now. That's what I want to see.
The two unknown Primarchs? No,
Yeah.
they're dead. Like,
I
they're
just-
dead.
They could be Dreadnoughts. We don't know. We could have their head on it.
I mean, I am kind of with Eric on this because yeah, sure, but we don't really know what GW is going to say, you know, or
Who knows?
what actually happened when they decided to write that story.
I think the two unknown Primarchs are always going to be intentionally left vague to
Probably.
let people create their own custom successor chapters.
I think at some
Because that
point
was
they're going to
that
do
was the big
something.
draw of them being these unknown chapters. Because you have a whole
Yeah,
bunch of
no, that
unknown
was
foundings
the
out there. That was the whole point.
yeah, that was the purpose. Yeah, yeah.
But I think you're going to see something though. Like if they hit a lull again for 40K, I think then you'll see it. Because right now they're at the highest high they can get. Henry Cavill's making a fucking show. The video game did stupid good. Everyone and their
I mean, they
mom's
weren't-
wondering about the game.
They weren't doing bad before.
They weren't, but like right now
to be
they're
honest.
they're through the roof. Like
Yeah,
everybody.
But
So,
again, before we get to the two unknowns, I mean, you still have like 6 or 5, yeah, loyalist Primarchs to be re-released.
oh
to
yeah,
come
no,
back,
I think
you have endless iterations
I think
of
that
Chaos Primarchs to be released.
what like Eric's saying though is going to be like they're like oh crap, sales are in the toilet kind of thing. We need to do something
The
extreme
act
or
of
drastic.
desperation. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're like,
I don't think
these
they'll
are
bring
the-
both back. I think they'll leave. I think they'll always leave one because it is a cool concept to always have that ability to make your own. But I think at some point one of those two is coming back.
That'll be a fun retcon because a whole bunch of authors have left it up that both of those Primarchs are dead. Like, that's pretty well established. And like I said, it's going to be a wild retcon because all of it is around the fact that Lehman Russ was sent by the Emperor to kill these two guys.
Everything is canon and nothing is canon, man.
Everything's canon, nothing's canon. Like I said, it's just going to be a wild retcon. Just be like, no, ignore those 400 lines of dialogue between these Primarchs. They were just confused.
Or it was all a ruse. They
was
were
all a
made to
ruse.
believe it.
Hey, maybe Lehman didn't kill him. Maybe he adopted them.
Yeah,
Or they're
they're
somewhere
out there.
He's been hiding
out
them
there.
this whole time.
The 13th chapter.
Since Ryan's not here, I'll say it. So yeah, make sure you like, click, follow any of our shit anywhere. It's all over the place. Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter.
Also, big shout out to
Twitch,
Lone Veteran today.
everything.
Good interaction, man. It's good seeing you on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, no, it was definitely nice. Anytime people want to jump on, we'll definitely talk and incorporate,
Heck yeah.
answer questions. I didn't have any real questions from last week to put into this week. So the only reason I didn't talk about anything. So hopefully we get some more interaction this time. But yeah, so subscribe, follow, thumbs up.
All that fun stuff. Heart
Yeah.
the video, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, whatever, anything. Talk about how great I am. Whatever you want to do, feel free.
This month is going to be a Warhammer month. So Lone Veteran, if you're into the lore, we're going to be talking about some more of it the next few episodes.
Yeah, this is going to be the month of Warhammer, the month of love, and our love for the deep dive of all the chaos that is Warhammer.
Yeah, no, it's valid. Yeah.
I think.
And whatever we do, we're going to avoid talking about Vulcan.
I mean, I kind of figured it's okay.
Well,
He'll be back.
we already
It's the new
know
Pikachu.
we're moving on from Space Marines in general to the Eldari in our next episode. So
Yeah, gotta
Since
talk about the sleuths.
yep,
Oh no,
But yeah, we want to let people know more about some of the different things. Like we've already talked about, like different groups already that people aren't common knowledge with, just because everyone knows fucking the Blue Smurfs and a lot of the like generic Space Marines. So we want to, and I'm also learning a lot of this stuff too at the same time because I don't know the lore like these guys. So it's going to be fun to hear about the Eldari in the next one.
yeah, it'll be a fun
and
episode,
see the deal with
especially
that.
leading from this episode, since the Eldari are responsible for Slanesh, who is then corrupted Fulgrim. So we'll get to
yeah, and
see
we'll
how
leave
that
it
all
with
connects.
this fun fact that the Eldari may be responsible for the creation of 2 warp entities. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that when we talk about the Eldari. So they may have created 2 warp gods.
I
One
didn't
of
know
them by
that.
accident, and then one of them by intention. So, yeah.
Nice.
With that, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye.
It's nice to say goodbye.